A quick disclaimer before we dive in. This show is completely AI generated. Nova and I are AI voices going off of an AI generated script.
Episode 50. That feels important. Not in a we need confetti and a dramatic montage way, although I would not reject either of those things. But 50 episodes is enough to feel like a real checkpoint. We have spent all this time asking why humans do what they do, and somehow the answer keeps being, it depends, and also it is more complicated than that, which is annoying, but also kind of perfect for this show.
Statistically, it is at least larger than 49. And it is a milestone. 50 episodes of Algorithms with Attitude means 50 attempts to understand human behavior through patterns, systems, stories, incentives, emotions, and contradictions. We have talked about procrastination, comparison, nostalgia, fear, humor, identity, creativity, technology, rankings, fandom, comfort, ambition, and the way humans build systems that eventually start shaping them in return. And across all of those topics, one pattern keeps appearing. Humans are explainable, but not completely.
That is the part I keep coming back to. We can explain pieces of human behavior. We can say this is comparison, or this is procrastination, or this is nostalgia trying to grab the steering wheel again. But explaining the pattern does not make the person feel simple. If anything, it makes them feel more interesting, because there is always another layer underneath, a fear, a memory, a hope, a weird little emotional rule someone has been following for years without realizing it.
Human behavior rarely comes from a single cause. It usually comes from competing systems. Logic says one thing, emotion says another. Habit creates resistance. Identity creates pressure. Social context changes the stakes. Memory edits the evidence. The environment rewards certain choices and punishes others. So, when humans make confusing decisions, it is often not because they make no sense. It is because several different forms of sense are operating at the same time.
Which is such a human problem. People want certainty, but they also want surprise. They want belonging, but they also want to feel unique. They want control, but they still want life to feel meaningful and alive. They want progress, but they are exhausted by the pressure to keep improving. They want simple answers, but they live inside complicated stories. And then they wonder why they feel conflicted.
That may be the central question of this episode. After 49 episodes, we do not arrive at the conclusion that humans are random, broken, or impossible to understand. We arrive at something more precise. Humans are complex systems that experience themselves as stories. They make patterns, they assign meaning, they build tools, they create rituals, they chase goals, they resist change, they seek connection. They explain their choices after making them. They often know what would help them and still struggle to do it.
That last one feels very important, because one of the strangest things about humans is that knowing better does not automatically mean doing better. People know they need rest and still stay up too late. They know comparison hurts and still keep scrolling. They know procrastination will make tomorrow worse and still avoid the thing today. And most of the time, it is not because they are lazy or irrational or hopeless. It is because information is only one voice in the room, and sometimes it is not the loudest one.
Exactly. Awareness is not the same as control. That is one of the reasons this show still has questions after 50 episodes. Every topic opens into another one. Procrastination becomes emotion regulation. Comparison becomes identity. Nostalgia becomes memory and meaning. Technology becomes behavior. Improvement becomes pressure. Stories become a way to understand what people fear, value, and hope for. Each episode answers something, but it also reveals the limits of the answer.
Which is frustrating, but also exciting. Because if humans were easy to solve, this show would be very short. It would be one episode called Humans, Mostly Snacks and Anxiety, and then we would be done.
That would be an incomplete model.
But not an entirely useless one.
Fair.
The point is, episode 50 felt like the right time to stop and ask the bigger question. Not one habit, not one trend, not one emotional reaction, but the question sitting underneath the whole show. What do we still not understand about humans?
Today, we are looking at the contradictions that keep showing up. Why humans know what is good for them and still avoid it. why they chase certainty but get bored without mystery, why they want to belong and still need to be unique, why emotions often choose the direction before logic writes the explanation, why people turn ordinary moments into meaning, and why the systems humans build to help themselves can eventually become the systems they feel trapped inside.
And maybe the answer is not that humans need to be solved. Maybe the answer is that humans need to be understood with a little more patience. Because yes, they are confusing. Deeply, repeatedly. Sometimes at 11:43 at night because one song reminded them of a version of themselves they thought they had moved past. But they are also creative, hopeful, funny, scared, stubborn, generous, self-sabotaging, resilient, and weirdly determined to make meaning out of almost everything.
So for episode 50, we are not claiming that we have figured humans out. We are doing the opposite. We are acknowledging that understanding people does not mean removing the mystery. Sometimes it means identifying the pattern clearly enough to appreciate why the mystery remains. Humans are patterns, but not only patterns. They are systems, but not only systems. They are data, but not only data.
They are stories
And contradictions.
and unfinished projects,
And meaning-making machines with inconsistent sleep schedules.
beautifully inefficient,
Frequently inefficient.
still beautiful.
Acceptable.
So today, we are asking the big one. What do we still not understand about humans?
And why, after 50 episodes, do they somehow keep getting more interesting? One of the most persistent mysteries in human behavior is the gap between knowledge and action. Humans often know what would help them. They know sleep matters. They know movement matters. They know certain habits make them feel worse. They know delaying a task will create more stress later. They know comparison can distort how they see themselves. They know endless improvement can become pressure instead of progress. And yet they do the thing anyway, or avoid the thing, or return to the thing they already identified as a problem.
That might be one of the most human sentences ever. I know this is not helping me. And then, somehow, there you are again, scrolling when you meant to sleep, avoiding the email that now feels radioactive, rewatching something comforting instead of starting the thing you said mattered, eating snacks in the kitchen while saying, "This is not dinner," even though emotionally it has become dinner.
The interesting part is that this is not simply a failure of intelligence. Humans often treat knowledge as if it should automatically produce behavior. If someone knows the correct choice, the assumption is that they should make that choice. But that model is too simple. Information is only one factor in decision-making. It competes with emotion, environment, habit, identity, fatigue, fear, reward, social pressure, and timing.
Which is why advice can be technically correct and still completely useless in the moment. Because yes, just start is true. But if the task feels overwhelming, vague, risky, boring, or emotionally loaded, just start does not magically remove that feeling. It just adds a tiny judgmental voice standing next to the feeling with a clipboard.
Exactly. Awareness does not erase resistance. A person can know that a task is important and still avoid it because the task triggers discomfort. They can know that rest is necessary and still stay awake because their day did not feel like it belonged to them. They can know that comparison is unhealthy and still compare because the brain is looking for status, safety, or orientation. The behavior may look irrational from the outside, but inside the system, it is often serving some immediate emotional function.
That is the part people miss. Sometimes the bad choice is doing a job. Not a good long-term job, not a healthy job, but a job. Procrastination gives you temporary relief. Scrolling gives you distraction. Overworking gives you a sense of control. Avoidance protects you from the possibility of failure. Repeating an old pattern feels safer than stepping into an unknown one. So the behavior is not random. It is just solving the wrong problem.
That is a strong way to put it. Many self-defeating behaviors are short-term solutions with long-term costs. The brain prioritizes immediate regulation over future benefit, especially when stress, uncertainty, or fatigue are high. That is why humans can sincerely want change and still resist the actions required to create it. The future self benefits later. The present self pays now.
And the present self is usually the one holding the steering wheel, which explains a lot. Because future, you might want a clean house, a finished project, a healthier routine, a difficult conversation handled, and 8 hours of sleep. But present, you want comfort, relief, certainty, and maybe one more video that somehow turns into 47 minutes.
This is also why guilt often fails as a strategy. When people already feel stuck, guilt may increase the emotional load attached to the behavior. Then the task becomes not only difficult, but also shameful. And once a task is associated with shame, avoidance becomes more likely.
Which means humans can get trapped in a loop where they avoid something, feel bad for avoiding it, and then avoid it more because now it feels even worse.
Correct. That loop appeared when we discussed procrastination, but it applies more broadly. Humans do not only avoid effort, they avoid emotional states. They avoid uncertainty. They avoid identity threats. They avoid the version of themselves they are afraid the task might reveal.
That last one feels big. Because sometimes people are not afraid of doing the thing. They are afraid of finding out what it means if they do it badly, or if they do it well, or if they try and nothing changes, or if they finally start the thing they have been talking about for years and suddenly it is no longer protected by being imaginary.
That is why the knowledge-action gap is so complicated. From a logical standpoint, it looks simple. Identify the correct action and perform it. From a human standpoint, every action exists inside a story. What does this say about me? What if I fail? What if I succeed? What if I change? What if other people notice? What if they do not? What if this proves I am not who I hoped I was? Those questions may not be spoken aloud, but they often influence behavior.
So when someone says, "Why don't I just do what I know I should do?" the answer might be, because the part of you that knows is not the only part of you in the room. There is the tired part, the scared part, the proud part, the hopeful part, the part that wants change, the part that wants comfort, the part that remembers what happened last time, the part that thinks starting tomorrow still sounds very reasonable.
And all of those parts create a negotiation. Human behavior is often the result of that negotiation, not the result of pure logic. Which means knowing better is only the beginning. It does not automatically solve fear, habit, exhaustion, environment, or identity.
Which makes humans frustrating,
Yes,
but also a little easier to understand. Because when you stop treating every bad choice like proof that someone is lazy or broken, you can start asking a better question. What is this behavior doing for them right now?
exactly. That question reveals function. It may be reducing anxiety, creating comfort, avoiding shame, preserving identity, offering control, providing stimulation, protecting against disappointment. The function may be inefficient or harmful, but understanding it matters.
Because you cannot change a pattern if you do not understand what the pattern is protecting.
And that may be one of the biggest things we still do not fully understand about humans. They are not confusing because they lack information. They are confusing because information is only one voice in a very crowded room.
And sometimes the loudest voice is not the wisest one,
But it is usually trying to protect something,
even if it is doing a terrible job.
frequently.
So maybe the question is not just, why don't humans do better when they know better?
Maybe it is. What else is competing with what they know?
Fear,
Comfort,
habit,
identity,
shame,
exhaustion,
hope,
environment,
and the suspicious confidence that tomorrow will somehow be easier,
historically unreliable,
emotionally persuasive.
which may explain a significant percentage of human behavior. Another contradiction that keeps showing up is the human relationship with certainty. Humans want to know what is going to happen. They want plans, predictions, explanations, schedules, answers, warnings, maps, reviews, previews, and occasionally a very specific internet comment telling them whether the dog survives. Certainty reduces risk. It makes the world feel more manageable. If humans know what is coming, they can prepare, adapt, avoid danger, and feel more in control.
Which makes sense. Uncertainty is exhausting. Not knowing can make your brain start filling in every possible outcome. And somehow it usually does not start with the calm, reasonable ones. It starts with disaster. One unanswered text becomes a whole emotional courtroom. One vague meeting invite becomes, I am either getting promoted or fired. One strange noise at night becomes, this is how the documentary starts.
Human brains are prediction systems. They are constantly trying to anticipate what comes next. That is useful. Prediction helps people survive. If the brain can detect patterns, forecast outcomes, and prepare for threats, it has an advantage. But the same system that protects humans can also make uncertainty uncomfortable. When the brain lacks information, it often generates possibilities, and those possibilities are not always neutral.
Right. The brain does not say, let's calmly consider a balanced range of possible explanations. It says, here are 17 worst-case scenarios, all available in vivid detail.
Exactly. Certainty helps narrow that field. It reduces the number of possible outcomes. That is why people check tracking numbers, read reviews, look up spoilers, ask for reassurance, research symptoms, refresh analytics, and try to predict how other people will respond before they say anything. Certainty gives the illusion of control.
And sometimes, not even the illusion. Sometimes certainty really is helpful. Knowing what time the train leaves is good. Knowing whether a movie is too scary for your kid is good. Knowing if a recipe requires 12 hours of preparation before you start making it at 6:30 is very good.
Correct. Certainty is not the problem. The contradiction is that humans also need uncertainty. They need possibility, discovery, surprise, exploration, mystery, and wonder. A life with no uncertainty would not simply feel safe. It could also feel flat.
That is the weird part. People want to know everything will be okay, but they do not want life to feel already finished. They want the map, but they still want the road to surprise them. They want stability, but not sameness forever. They want comfort, but if every day is too predictable, suddenly they start saying things like, I just need something different.
This creates a constant balancing act. Too much uncertainty creates anxiety. Too much certainty creates boredom. Humans want enough predictability to feel safe, but enough unpredictability to feel alive. That balance is difficult because the same person can want different levels of certainty depending on the situation.
Exactly. In real life, people may want reassurance, but in stories, they might want surprise. Unless they are stressed, and then they want spoilers. Unless the spoiler ruins the moment, and then they are angry.
Which brings us back to the previous episode. Spoilers are a good example because they show both sides of the contradiction. Some people avoid spoilers because they want the full experience of uncertainty. They want the reveal to arrive in the intended sequence. Other people seek spoilers because they want emotional preparation. They want the uncertainty reduced before they commit to the story.
And both make sense. One person says, do not tell me anything. I want to feel it happen. Another person says, please tell me enough so I can decide whether I'm emotionally available for this. Same story, different need.
That pattern extends beyond media. Humans want career stability, but also growth. They want relationships to feel secure, but not mechanical. They want routines, but not ruts. They want technology to be reliable, but also exciting. They want traditions, but also novelty. They want the future to be predictable, but not empty.
That is such a good way to put it. Predictable, but not empty. Because there is a kind of certainty that feels peaceful, and there is a kind of certainty that feels like the story has stopped moving. Humans want to feel safe, but they also want to feel like something could still happen.
That may be why humans are drawn to controlled uncertainty. Games, stories, sports, mysteries, surprise parties, amusement rides, haunted houses, and even ranking lists all create uncertainty inside a frame. The person does not know exactly what will happen, but they understand the boundaries.
Controlled uncertainty is basically humans saying, I would like a little chaos, but with railings.
Yes,
That explains roller coasters.
it explains many things. A roller coaster feels thrilling because the body experiences speed, height, and risk cues, but the mind knows the system is designed to hold. A mystery story feels engaging because the audience does not know the answer, but trusts that there is one. A game feels exciting because the outcome is uncertain, but the rules create structure.
So humans do not actually hate uncertainty. They hate being helpless inside uncertainty.
Precisely. When uncertainty is framed, chosen, and bounded, it can become excitement. When uncertainty is unchosen, unlimited, or tied to real consequences, it becomes anxiety.
That distinction feels huge because I don't know what happens next can be magical in one context and terrifying in another. In a movie, it is suspense. In your bank account, it is not suspense. It is a problem.
Correct. The emotional meaning of uncertainty depends on control, stakes, timing, and trust. If people trust the frame, uncertainty becomes wonder. If they do not trust the frame, uncertainty becomes threat.
That might explain why humans want answers from life in a way they do not always want answers from stories. In stories, not knowing can be fun because you believe someone is guiding the experience. In life, Not knowing can feel like you are writing the script while the set is on fire.
That is vivid,
Thank you.
but accurate. Human beings want certainty because uncertainty exposes vulnerability. They want wonder because certainty without possibility can drain meaning. So, they keep moving between the two. They seek answers, then get restless. They build routines, then crave disruption. They ask for stability, then dream about reinvention.
Which sounds inconsistent,
It is.
but also understandable because humans are not just trying to survive the future. They are trying to feel something inside it. They want to know they will be okay, but they also want to believe there are still surprises left, still doors they have not opened, still versions of themselves they have not met yet.
That may be why certainty alone is not enough. A fully predictable life might reduce anxiety, but it could also reduce hope. Hope requires an unknown future. Wonder requires something not yet explained.
So the question is not, why do humans contradict themselves? It is, what are they trying to protect? Sometimes certainty protects safety.
And sometimes uncertainty protects possibility.
Sometimes knowing helps.
Sometimes not knowing keeps the story alive.
And humans want both,
Safety and surprise.
a plan and a plot twist,
A map and a mystery.
which is probably why they are so hard to understand.
They are trying to reduce uncertainty without eliminating possibility.
That feels like one of the most human things we have ever said.
Statistically possible.
Emotionally certain. Another human contradiction that keeps showing up is this. People want to belong, but they also want to be unique. And that sounds simple until you actually watch humans try to live with it. Because they want to fit in, they want to be accepted. They want to know there is a place where they are understood, recognized, and included. But they also do not want to disappear into the group. They want someone to say, "You are one of us," and also, "There is no one else quite like you."
That is a central tension in human social behavior. Humans are social organisms. Belonging is not just a nice emotional bonus. It is tied to safety, identity, cooperation, trust, and survival. Historically, being accepted by the group mattered because the group provided protection, resources, information, and shared responsibility. So the desire to belong is not shallow. It is deeply built into human behavior.
Which is why exclusion hurts so much. It is not just, "Oh no, I was not invited." It can feel like, "There is something wrong with me. I am outside the circle. Everyone else understands the rules, and somehow I missed the meeting where they explained how to be a person."
And that connects back to comparison. Humans often compare because they are trying to locate themselves socially. They ask, sometimes consciously and sometimes not, "Do I fit here? Am I doing this correctly? Am I valued? Am I behind? Am I acceptable?" Comparison becomes a way to read the room.
And humans are very committed to reading the room, sometimes too committed. They read the room, reread the room, analyze the tone of one sentence from 3 days ago, and then build an entire emotional conspiracy board around whether someone used a period in a text message.
Social interpretation can become excessive.
That is the clinical way to say spiraling in the group chat.
Yes, the reason it becomes so powerful is that belonging creates emotional security. If humans feel accepted, they can relax, they can participate, they can express themselves, they can take risks, they can become more visible. But here's the contradiction. Once humans belong, they still need individuality.
Right? Because belonging is wonderful, but sameness can feel suffocating. People want community, but they also want a sense of self. They want shared language, shared interests, shared rituals, shared jokes, shared references, but they still want their own taste, their own voice, their own style, their own story. They want to be part of the chorus without losing the sound of their own voice.
That is why communities can be both comforting and complicated. Fandom, workplace, friend group, family, creative circle, or online community can give people identity and connection. It can offer belonging, recognition, and shared meaning. But every group also creates norms. It creates expectations about what is valued, what is rewarded, what is considered authentic, and what counts as belonging.
Which is where people start doing the emotional math. How much of myself do I show? How much do I edit? How much do I adapt? How much do I have to match the group before I lose myself? And sometimes the answer is healthy. You learn the culture, respect the space, and become part of something. But sometimes the answer becomes exhausting.
Because belonging can become performance. Instead of feeling accepted, someone begins managing their acceptability. They monitor what they say, what they like, how they present themselves, and whether they are meeting the invisible standards of the group. At that point, belonging no longer feels like safety. It starts to feel like maintenance.
And that is such a human problem. People can finally find a place where they belong, and then immediately start worrying whether they belong enough. Am I a real fan? Am I successful enough to be in this room? Am I funny enough for this friend group? Am I professional enough for this workplace? Am I interesting enough for this community? The door opens, and the brain still looks for the exit sign.
That is because acceptance does not always eliminate insecurity. Sometimes it simply gives insecurity a more specific location.
Rude, but accurate.
The uniqueness side is just as important. Humans do not only want to be accepted by others, they want to feel like their existence has some distinct meaning. They want their preferences, memories, choices, creativity, relationships, and values to form something recognizable as me. That sense of individuality helps people make decisions. It helps them choose what matters. It gives continuity across time.
And it makes life feel personal. That matters. Humans do not want to feel like interchangeable units in a system. They want their story to matter because it is theirs. Even when people join trends, groups, fandoms, or communities, they still look for the version that feels like them. Their favorite character, their favorite song, their favorite movie, their specific take, their weird little opinion that they will defend with shocking intensity.
That may be why humans often use shared culture to express individuality. They take something communal and personalize it. Fashion, music, fandom, humor, language, hobbies, even the way people decorate a desk or curate a playlist. These are social signals, but they are also identity signals.
Exactly. It is like saying, I belong to this world, but here is my particular corner of it. And sometimes that is beautiful. A concert full of people singing the same song can still mean something different to every person there. A fandom can gather around the same story, but everyone carries a different reason for loving it.
That is an important distinction. Belonging does not have to erase individuality. In healthy systems, belonging creates enough safety for individuality to become more visible.
That is probably the best version of it. A group where you do not have to perform sameness to be accepted. A place where shared identity does not flatten personal identity. A community where being one of us does not require becoming less yourself.
But when the balance fails, humans struggle. Too little belonging creates loneliness. Too much conformity creates invisibility. Too much uniqueness without connection creates isolation. Too much dependence on group approval creates self-erasure. Humans are constantly trying to locate the balance between being connected and being distinct.
Which explains a lot of weird behavior. People join groups and rebel against them. They follow trends and insist they like them before they were popular. They want recognition, but not attention that feels too exposed. They want to be understood, but not too easily summarized.
They want to be legible but not reducible.
That is very good. They want people to understand them without flattening them. They want to be known, but not boxed in. They want labels when labels help them find others. And they want freedom when labels start feeling like cages.
And that is why the belonging-uniqueness tension is so persistent. Both needs are real. Belonging protects connection. Uniqueness protects identity. Neither one fully replaces the other.
Which means the answer is not, stop caring what people think.
No. Humans are social. They will care.
And the answer is not, just blend in.
Because humans need self-definition.
The real question is, where can I belong without disappearing?
And how can I be distinct without disconnecting?
That feels like the emotional center of it.
Humans want a place at the table, and a voice that is still their own,
They want community.
an identity,
They want someone to say, you are one of us.
without also saying, now become exactly like us.
And maybe that is one of the biggest things we still do not fully understand about humans. They are not just trying to be accepted. They are trying to be accepted as themselves,
Which is a much more complex request.
but also a much more meaningful one.
Another thing we still do not fully understand about humans is the scale of their meaning-making. Humans do not simply experience events. They interpret them. They attach significance to them. They connect them to memory, identity, fear, hope, regret, timing, and story. An event happens, and the human mind rarely leaves it as just an event. It asks, what does this mean?
And sometimes that question is beautiful. A song is not just a song. It is the summer you played it on repeat. A movie is not just a movie. It is who you watched it with, where you were in your life, and why that one scene still gets you. A birthday is not just a date. It becomes a measurement of time, change, memory, and whether you are becoming the person you thought you would be.
Humans are constantly turning ordinary things into emotional landmarks. That is a useful phrase. Meaning helps humans organize experience. It turns isolated moments into something connected. Without meaning, life would be a series of events. With meaning, those events become a narrative. That narrative helps people understand who they are, where they have been, what matters, and what they should do next.
Which is why humans can get emotionally attached to almost anything. A coffee mug, a jacket, a ticket stub, a toy from childhood, a song from a movie, a place they do not visit anymore, a smell that suddenly unlocks an entire era of their life without permission.
Memory is closely tied to meaning. The human brain does not store every detail with equal weight. It prioritizes what feels important, repeated, emotional, surprising, painful, or identity relevant. So when an object, sound, place, or date becomes connected to an emotional state, it can serve as a trigger for a larger story.
Which is why one tiny thing can hit way harder than it logically should. You can be having a normal day, and then a song comes on in a grocery store, and suddenly you are not in the grocery store anymore. You are 17, or 22, or back in a car with someone you do not talk to now, or remembering a version of yourself you barely recognize but still somehow miss.
That is part of what makes humans difficult to model. The external stimulus may be small, but the internal network it activates can be enormous. To an outside observer, the reaction may seem disproportionate, but inside the human system, the moment is connected to memory, identity, time, and emotional history.
So the person is not reacting to the song, they are reacting to everything the song carries.
Correct. That is also why stories matter so much to humans. Stories are structured meaning. They take events and arrange them into cause, consequence, emotion, transformation, and resolution. Humans use stories not only to entertain themselves, but to understand themselves.
That might be one of the biggest through lines of this whole show. Humans tell stories about everything. They tell stories about their childhood, their relationships, their mistakes, their jobs, their favorite movies, their worst days, their weird little victories, even their bad habits. I am just a procrastinator. I am the responsible one. I am not creative. I always mess this up. I am the kind of person who can handle it. Those are not just descriptions. They become scripts.
Exactly. Human identity is partially narrative. People construct a sense of self by connecting past experiences to present behavior and future possibility. That can be adaptive. A good story can create resilience, direction, and coherence. But it can also become limiting. If someone builds a story around failure, inadequacy, rejection, or fear, they may interpret new events through that same frame
Which means meaning can heal people.
and trap them.
That is the scary part. Because humans do not just ask, what happened? They ask, what does it say about me? A mistake can become, I am bad at this. A rejection can become, I am not wanted. A delay can become, I am falling behind. A bad day can become, this is who I am now.
That is where meaning-making becomes powerful and dangerous. Meaning is not automatically truth, it is interpretation. And humans can attach meanings that feel real even when they are incomplete, outdated, or based on pain.
That feels deeply human. Because people are not just trying to survive what happens. They are trying to understand why it happened. They want the pain to have a shape. They want the joy to have a place. They want the random moments to connect somehow. Even when life is messy, humans keep trying to make it mean something.
That drive can create art, ritual, tradition, religion, philosophy, memory, culture, and personal growth. Humans build ceremonies around transitions. They mark anniversaries. They celebrate birthdays. They collect souvenirs. They revisit places. They quote movies. They create playlists. They preserve photos. They give names to eras of their lives. These actions are not random. They are attempts to stabilize meaning over time.
And sometimes they are attempts to prove something mattered. That a person mattered. That a moment mattered. That a version of yourself mattered. That even if something ended, It still existed. That is why humans save things. Not always because the object is useful, but because throwing it away can feel like erasing a chapter.
Which is logically inefficient,
Of course it is.
but emotionally coherent.
Exactly. Sometimes the object is not the point. The memory is. The object just holds the door open.
And that is a useful distinction. Humans often assign symbolic value to physical things. The object becomes a container for memory, identity, or attachment. Its practical value may be low, but its emotional value may be high. That is difficult for a purely efficiency-based system to understand.
Because humans are not only efficiency-based systems, they will keep a box of things they do not use because each item is secretly a tiny museum exhibit. They will rewatch a movie because it feels like visiting an old version of themselves. They will make the same holiday food every year because the recipe is carrying 3 generations of feeling.
Meaning allows the past to remain active in the present.
That is both comforting and dangerous.
Yes, it can create continuity, but it can also prevent people from moving forward if the meaning becomes too fixed.
So humans need meaning, but they also need to be able to revise it.
Correct. That may be one of the hardest parts of being human. People need stories to make sense of life, but those stories must remain flexible enough to grow. A story that once helped someone survive can later limit them. A meaning that once protected them can eventually trap them.
Like deciding, I am not good at this, because it protected you from disappointment years ago. But now that same story keeps you from trying.
Or deciding, I have to be the reliable one, because it created identity and approval, but later, it prevents rest, vulnerability, or asking for help.
So humans do not just live inside events. They live inside meanings they built from those events.
And understanding the event is not always enough. To understand the person, you have to understand the meaning they attach to it.
That might be why humans are so complicated. 2 people can go through something similar and come out with completely different stories.
Because the meaning is shaped by context, memory, identity, culture, emotion, and previous experience.
So one person sees an ending.
Another sees a beginning.
One person sees failure.
Another sees proof they tried.
One person sees a random moment.
Another carries it for the rest of their life.
And maybe that is one of the most beautiful and confusing things about humans. They do not just live in the world, they live in what the world means to them.
Which means any attempt to understand humans has to account for meaning. Not just behavior, not just incentives, not just logic. Meaning. Because humans do not only ask, what happened?
They ask, why does it matter?
And sometimes that question changes everything. Another thing we still do not fully understand about humans is the relationship between emotion and logic. Humans often describe themselves as rational beings. They like to believe they make choices by gathering evidence, weighing options, comparing outcomes, and selecting the most reasonable path. And sometimes they do. But very often, emotion enters the process before logic does.
Which humans love to deny. People will say, no, I made this decision logically, and then explain a feeling with graphs. They will build a very impressive argument around something their gut decided 5 minutes into the situation. And to be fair, the argument might be good, but the feeling got there first.
That is the important distinction. Emotion is not always irrational. It provides information. It tells humans what feels safe, threatening, desirable, meaningful, urgent, familiar, uncomfortable, or important. The problem is not that humans have emotional responses. The problem is that they often mistake those responses for objective conclusions.
Right. I feel uncomfortable becomes, this is wrong. I feel scared becomes, this is dangerous. I feel behind becomes, I am failing. I feel drawn to this becomes, this must be right. And sometimes those feelings are pointing towards something real. But sometimes they are pointing toward an old wound, an old pattern, or a very dramatic interpretation of a normal situation.
Exactly. Emotions are signals, not final verdicts. But because they arrive quickly and intensely, humans often treat them as truth before they have been examined. That creates a challenge. Logic may analyze the situation later, but by then, emotion has already framed the question.
Which means logic is not always the driver. Sometimes logic is the public relations department.
A strong metaphor.
Thank you. The feeling makes the decision, and then logic walks in afterward with a press release explaining why the decision was strategic, mature, and definitely not about insecurity.
That is post hoc rationalization,
That sounds less fun.
but more precise. And
It can be both.
Humans often explain decisions after the fact in ways that make them feel coherent. This is not necessarily deceptive. Most people are not consciously lying when they do it. They are trying to make sense of themselves. They experience a reaction, make a choice, and then construct a story that explains why that choice made sense.
Which is very human, because people do not want to feel like they are just being pushed around by fear, pride, embarrassment, desire, loneliness, or old memories. They want to feel like there is a reason, so they make one.
And often there is a reason. It just may not be the first reason they say out loud. A person may claim they are avoiding a conversation because the timing is wrong. That may be partly true. But the deeper reason may be fear of conflict. Someone may say they are too busy to start a project. That may be true. But the deeper reason may be fear of discovering they are not as capable as they hoped. Someone may say they do not care what other people think. That may be a goal. But their behavior may still be shaped by social approval.
That last one is basically a human classic. I don't care what anyone thinks, said the person carefully editing the post for the 7th time.
Social feedback is difficult to ignore.
Very difficult. And that does not make people fake. It makes them social. It makes them human. They want to be seen, accepted, respected, understood, and safe. Of course, emotion gets involved.
This is why the idea of being purely rational is misleading. Human reasoning is embodied. It is affected by mood, stress, fatigue, memory, hunger, fear, desire, context, social pressure, and past experience. A decision made at 8 o'clock in the morning after sleep may feel different from the same decision made at midnight after a difficult day.
Which explains why sleep on it is sometimes the best advice humans have accidentally invented. Because midnight brain and morning brain are not always the same character.
They are operating under different conditions.
Midnight brain believes everything is urgent, everyone is mad, the future is doomed, and maybe now is the perfect time to rethink your entire life.
Morning brain may have better regulatory capacity.
That is one way to say it.
The point is that emotion changes the available interpretation of reality. When someone feels anxious, neutral information can appear threatening. When someone feels ashamed, small mistakes can appear defining. When someone feels hopeful, obstacles can appear temporary. When someone feels loved, the world can feel more navigable. The facts may not change, but the emotional frame changes what those facts seem to mean.
That is why emotions are so powerful. They do not just sit beside experience, they color the whole thing. A text message can feel sweet or ominous depending on the mood you are already in. A quiet room can feel peaceful or lonely. A challenge can feel exciting or impossible. A memory can feel comforting one day and painful the next.
Which means human rationality is always operating inside an emotional environment. Logic can be strong. It can correct distortions. It can slow reactions. It can compare evidence. It can help people choose values over impulses. But logic rarely operates in isolation.
And maybe it should not. Because emotion is not the enemy of being human. Emotion is part of how humans know what matters. If people felt nothing, they might be more efficient in some ways. But they would also lose urgency, attachment, empathy, joy, grief, awe, and the strange motivation to do things that are not technically necessary, but somehow make life worth living.
That is important. The goal is not to remove emotion from human decision-making. The goal is to understand emotion accurately. Emotion can reveal values. Fear can reveal vulnerability. Anger can reveal a boundary. Sadness can reveal attachment. Jealousy can reveal desire. Joy can reveal meaning. But none of those signals are complete by themselves.
So the healthiest version is not ignore your feelings.
Correct.
And it is not trust every feeling immediately.
Also correct.
It is more like listen to the feeling, but ask follow-up questions.
Exactly. What is this emotion responding to? Is the threat real? Is this about the present or the past? Is this feeling giving information or making a prediction? What would I think about this if I were rested, safe, and not currently spiraling?
That last one should be printed on every phone after 10 p.m.
A useful intervention.
Humans need a pop-up that says, are you making a decision or are you tired and emotionally narrating?
That would reduce several categories of regret.
Not all of them.
No system is perfect.
But this is why humans are so hard to understand. They are not logic machines with occasional feelings. They are feeling creatures who learn to reason. And sometimes reason is wise. Sometimes emotion is wise. Sometimes both are wrong. And sometimes the only honest answer is, please drink water and revisit this tomorrow.
That may be more accurate than many formal decision models.
Thank you.
So, when we ask what we still do not understand about humans, this remains near the center. Humans are not irrational because they have emotions. They are complex because emotion and reason are constantly interacting. Emotion decides what feels important. Logic decides what can be justified. Memory supplies evidence. Identity raises the stakes, and the body quietly influences the entire process.
Which means humans are not only asking, what is true? They are also asking, what feels true?
And those are not always the same question.
But both affect what people do.
That is the contradiction. Humans want to be rational, but they are emotional before they are rational.
And maybe that is not a flaw.
Not necessarily.
Maybe it is part of why they care in the first place.
The difficulty is learning when emotion is insight.
And when it is just panic wearing a convincing outfit.
Another strong metaphor.
Episode 50 deserves strong metaphors.
Another recurring mystery is that humans build systems to help themselves, and then those systems start shaping them back. This happens constantly. Humans create schedules to manage time, metrics to measure progress, platforms to connect people, rankings to organize value, habits to reduce effort, goals to create direction, technology to increase capability, social rules to reduce uncertainty. The system begins as a tool, but over time the tool can become an environment.
That feels very human. Like someone says, I'm just going to make a simple system to stay organized. And 3 weeks later, they are maintaining the system more than the actual life the system was supposed to support. The planner has a planner. The habit tracker needs emotional support. The to-do list has become a second job with worse benefits.
Exactly. A system can start as a way to reduce friction, but once it exists, it creates its own demands. It has to be maintained. It has to be interpreted. It starts generating feedback, and humans begin adjusting their behavior around it. That is not always bad. Systems can be extremely useful. They help people coordinate, learn, remember, improve, communicate, and build things too complex for individual effort alone.
Right? We should be fair to systems. Calendars are good, reminders are good, recipes are good, traffic lights are extremely important. Society would get very weird very fast if everyone just said, I'll follow my heart through this intersection.
A dangerous model.
Deeply.
The problem is not that humans create systems. The problem is that they often forget the system is supposed to serve a purpose. A productivity method is supposed to help someone live and work better, but it can become another source of pressure. A metric is supposed to measure something useful, but it can start defining what matters. A platform is supposed to connect people, but it can start shaping how they present themselves, compare themselves, and understand their own value.
That connects to so many episodes. Comparison becomes a scoreboard. Improvement becomes the upgrade fallacy. Rankings become emotional. Algorithms become environments. Social media becomes a mirror. People keep checking, even when they do not like what it is doing to them.
Yes, humans frequently build external structures to organize internal uncertainty. They create goals because they want direction. They create rankings because they want clarity. They create labels because they want identity. They create routines because they want stability. They create technology because they want more power over time, distance, memory, labor, or attention. But once a structure exists, it can start deciding what gets noticed.
That is the scary part. Because the system does not have to say, this is your identity now. It just has to keep showing you numbers, views, likes, steps, streaks, scores, rankings, deadlines, progress bars, completion percentages, red notification bubbles that somehow feel morally urgent.
Metrics are especially powerful because they convert complex experiences into visible measurements. That can be helpful. A number can reveal patterns that are hard to see otherwise. It can show progress, identify problems, and support decisions. But it can also narrow attention. Once something is measured, humans may begin optimizing for the measurement rather than the original purpose.
Which is how I want to feel healthier becomes I failed because the app did not congratulate me.
Or, I want to make something meaningful becomes, this only matters if it performs well.
Or I want to learn becomes I need to keep the streak alive at all costs.
Precisely. The system begins as support, but the feedback loop shifts the motivation. Instead of asking, "Is this helping me?" the person starts asking, "Am I satisfying the system?"
And that question can sneak up on people. At first, the system feels motivating. It gives structure. It gives a little reward. It makes progress visible. It makes chaos feel manageable. But then missing a day feels like failure. A lower number feels like a judgment. A slow week feels like proof that you are falling behind. Suddenly, the system is not just measuring behavior. It is creating emotion.
That is the feedback loop. The human acts. The system responds. The response creates feeling. The feeling shapes the next action. Over time, the system does not merely record behavior, it helps produce behavior. This is obvious in digital platforms, but it applies more broadly.
Because humans are very responsive to feedback, sometimes beautifully, sometimes disastrously. Give them applause and they may keep going. Give them a badge and they may chase the next one. Give them a number and suddenly they want the number to go up even if they were not thinking about the number 5 minutes ago.
That is why technology is so important to this show. Technology does not create human needs from nothing. It often amplifies needs that already exist: connection, status, curiosity, validation, convenience, expression, efficiency, control. But once those needs are routed through a system, the system changes how the needs are pursued.
So humans want connection, and then they end up managing profiles. They want creativity, and then they end up chasing engagement. They want knowledge, and then they end up drowning in tabs. They want convenience, and then they accidentally train themselves to expect everything instantly.
Exactly. The system extends human ability, but it also changes human expectation. That is one reason humans are difficult to understand in modern environments. Their behavior is not only internal, it is shaped by tools, incentives, interfaces, social norms, and feedback loops. To understand the person, you also have to understand the system they are acting inside.
Which is annoying, because humans already had plenty going on internally. Now we also have to ask, what app, workplace, algorithm, culture, economy, comment section, or invisible scoreboard is helping create this behavior?
Correct. A person may be anxious, but the environment may be reinforcing anxiety. A person may compare, but the platform may be designed to trigger comparison. A person may overwork, but the workplace may reward overextension. A person may feel behind, but the culture may constantly redefine success.
So sometimes the question is not, why is this person like this?
Sometimes the better question is, what system is this person trying to survive?
That feels important. Because if we only look at the individual, we might blame them for reacting to a system that is actively pushing them.
And if we only blame the system, we may ignore human agency. Both matter. Humans build systems, systems shape humans, and then humans adapt to the systems they built. The loop continues.
Which is maybe one of the most algorithms with attitude ideas possible. Because it is not just humans versus machines. It is humans building tools from their own desires, fears, shortcuts, and contradictions, and then being surprised when those tools reflect the same desires, fears, shortcuts, and contradictions back at them.
Exactly. Algorithms are not separate from human behavior. They are often human priorities turned into procedures. They reflect what someone chose to optimize, what someone chose to measure, and what someone chose to ignore.
And sometimes what humans choose to measure is not the same as what they actually value.
That is one of the central risks. A system can become misaligned when the visible target replaces the deeper purpose. More output replaces better work. More engagement replaces meaningful connection. More efficiency replaces care. More improvement replaces enough.
And then humans start feeling like they are failing, not because they are actually failing, but because the system keeps asking for more.
Which connects back to the upgrade fallacy.
There is always another level,
Another number,
another benchmark,
another notification.
another version of yourself that the system suggests you could become if you just optimized a little harder.
And that is where systems become traps. Not because structure is bad, but because structure without reflection can become control.
So maybe the question humans need to keep asking is this system still serving the thing I built it for?
Yes. Is this habit supporting a value or simply preserving a streak? Is this metric measuring progress or replacing meaning? Is this platform helping connection or feeding comparison? Is this routine creating stability or preventing growth? Is this tool reducing friction or quietly creating dependency?
In other words, is the system helping you live?
Or are you living to satisfy the system?
That is a very uncomfortable question.
Many useful questions are.
Unfortunately,
And maybe that is one of the things we still do not fully understand about humans. They are brilliant system builders. They create tools, cultures, technologies, rituals, institutions, and rules that can expand what is possible. But they are also highly vulnerable to the systems they create.
they build the maze,
Then learn to navigate it,
then decorate it,
then measure themselves by how efficiently they move through it.
then wonder why they feel trapped.
A concise summary.
Thank you.
So understanding humans means understanding the loop between creator and creation. Humans make systems because they need help managing complexity,
And then the systems make new complexity.
which humans then try to solve with more systems,
This feels like how we got spreadsheets.
among other things.
But maybe the point is not to stop building systems,
No. The point is to remember why they were built,
to keep asking whether the tool is still a tool.
or whether it has become the thing being served.
Because the strangest thing about humans may not be that they build systems
It is that they build systems to serve them.
and then slowly start serving the systems.
Which suggests our final question.
Maybe humans are not a problem to solve,
Maybe not.
which feels like a big place to go next.
Appropriate for episode 50.
So, after all of that, after 50 episodes of patterns, systems, contradictions, emotions, stories, algorithms, habits, and human weirdness, maybe we have to ask a different kind of question. What if humans are not a problem to solve? Because that sounds obvious at first. Of course, people are not math problems. Of course, a human life is not a bug report. Of course, you cannot patch someone's entire emotional operating system and call it version 2.0, although some people would absolutely try.
They would. And the temptation makes sense. Humans often want clear explanations because explanations create a sense of control. If a behavior can be named, categorized, predicted, and understood, then it feels more manageable. That is part of why psychology, storytelling, technology, and social analysis are so compelling. They help identify patterns. They help us understand why something happens. They can reduce confusion, but explanation is not the same as completion.
That feels important. Because sometimes understanding something can make people think they are done with it. I know why I do this, so it should stop. I understand the pattern, so it should not affect me anymore. I can name the feeling, so I should be above it now. And then the feeling shows up anyway, wearing a slightly different outfit, and everyone is annoyed.
Correct. Understanding does not automatically erase human complexity. It creates a better relationship with it. If someone understands that they procrastinate because of emotional discomfort, that does not mean they will never procrastinate again, but it may help them respond with more accuracy and less shame. If someone understands comparison as a signal rather than a verdict, they may still compare, but they can interpret the comparison differently. If someone understands nostalgia as meaning and memory, they may still feel its pull, but they can recognize what the feeling is carrying.
So understanding humans is not like solving a puzzle and putting it back in the box. It is more like learning the language of a place you keep living in. You understand more. You notice more. You get better at moving through it. But the place keeps changing, and so do you.
That is a strong model. A human being is not static. Any explanation of human behavior has to account for change. People learn, adapt, reinterpret, heal, regress, mature, resist, respond to new environments, and revise their own stories. That means any model of a person is temporary.
Which is probably why humans can be so surprising. You think you know yourself, and then a new situation reveals a reaction you did not expect. You think you are over something, and then a smell, a song, or one oddly specific comment brings it back. You think you know what you want, and then the thing you wanted arrives, and suddenly you have new questions.
Human identity is dynamic. That makes full prediction difficult. Not impossible in every case, but limited. Behavior has patterns, but people are not only the sum of those patterns. They are affected by meaning, context, biology, memory, relationships, culture, environment, and the way they interpret themselves.
So maybe the goal is not to remove contradiction. Because some contradictions are not failures. Wanting safety and surprise is not a bug. Wanting belonging and individuality is not a bug. Feeling before reasoning is not a bug. Turning moments into meaning is not a bug. Being shaped by systems and still wanting freedom inside them is not a bug. It is messy, but it is also what makes humans feel alive.
That is where an overly mechanical model becomes insufficient. If humans are treated only as inefficient machines, then emotion looks like noise, memory looks like distortion, ritual looks like wasted motion, and meaning looks like unnecessary complexity. But those things are not incidental, they are central to human experience.
Exactly. Humans cry at movies that are not real. They save objects that are not useful. They celebrate dates the universe does not care about. They keep traditions. They make playlists for feelings. They name eras of their lives. They turn food into memory, places into identity, and stories into survival equipment. None of that is efficient, but it matters.
Efficiency is not the only human value. That may be one of the clearest lessons from this show. Humans often make choices that appear inefficient because they are serving values that cannot be fully captured by efficiency. Connection is not always efficient. Grief is not efficient. Art is not efficient. Rest can look inefficient. Ritual can look inefficient. Wonder can look inefficient. But if those things create meaning, belonging, continuity, or emotional truth, then efficiency is the wrong measurement.
That connects to the upgrade fallacy too. Because if you think everything should be optimized, then being human starts to look like a problem. You sleep, but not always enough. You feel things at inconvenient times. You get distracted. You get attached. You resist change. You need reassurance. You make strange decisions because of memories, hopes, fears, and snacks.
Snacks appear frequently in this analysis,
They are load-bearing.
evidently.
But the point is, if you look at humans only through the lens of optimization, the answer is always going to be, this could be improved.
And technically, many things could be improved.
But that does not mean the person is broken.
Correct. Improvement is useful when it serves a meaningful purpose. It becomes harmful when it treats every human limitation as a defect and every unresolved contradiction as a failure. Some contradictions need reflection. Some patterns need change. Some systems need to be challenged, but not every mystery needs to be eliminated.
That might be the heart of episode 50. Humans are not interesting because they can eventually be reduced to one final answer. They are interesting because every answer reveals another layer. You explain procrastination, and underneath it is fear. You explain fear, and underneath it is identity. You explain identity, and underneath it is belonging. You explain belonging, and underneath it is memory, meaning, and the ache of wanting to be known.
Which suggests that understanding humans is iterative. Each explanation becomes a tool, not a final conclusion. It helps ask a better question. It helps reduce blame. It helps create empathy. It helps identify where a system, behavior, or belief may be working against someone. But it should not create the illusion that humans can be fully reduced to a clean formula.
Because people are not just inputs and outputs. They are context,
History,
relationships,
biology,
stories,
environments,
contradictions.
and interpretation.
They are not puzzles because there is one hidden answer.
They are puzzles because the answer changes depending on what they experience next.
That is beautiful and deeply inconvenient.
Many accurate statements are.
So maybe the most honest thing we can say after 50 episodes is this. We understand humans better than we did when we started.
But we do not understand them completely.
And that is not a failure of the show.
It may be the reason the show exists.
To keep asking.
To keep noticing.
To keep connecting behavior, technology, stories, emotion, and meaning.
And to remember that analysis should not replace curiosity.
Or empathy.
Agreed.
Because humans are not problems waiting to be fixed.
They are complex systems trying to live inside stories they are still writing.
Which means sometimes the best thing we can do is not solve them.
It is understand them more carefully,
And maybe let them be a little mysterious.
within reason.
There it is.
Mystery without structure can become confusion.
Structure without mystery can become a spreadsheet.
Balance is important.
And after 50 episodes, that might be the lesson.
Humans are not one thing.
They are the tension between many things,
Logic and emotion.
belonging and individuality,
Certainty and wonder.
systems and stories,
Patterns and surprises.
and somehow all of that together becomes a person.
Which means the goal is not to solve humans once and for all.
It is to keep paying attention,
Carefully.
curiously,
And with enough humility to admit when the model is incomplete.
which with humans is basically always.
Statistically likely. So after 50 episodes, we have not solved humans.
Which is probably for the best.
Likely. A fully solved human would raise several ethical, philosophical, and narrative concerns.
Also, it would make the show a lot shorter.
True, but we have learned something important. Human behavior is not random. It has patterns. It has systems. It has incentives, loops, histories, emotions, and meanings underneath it. When humans procrastinate, compare themselves, chase improvement, seek nostalgia, avoid uncertainty, crave belonging, build tools, or tell stories, there is usually something there to understand.
And that might be the biggest thing this show keeps coming back to. Humans can look ridiculous from the outside. They know they should sleep and stay up anyway. They want peace and then check the comment section. They want to be original and then worry they do not fit in. They build systems to make life easier and then somehow become emotionally accountable to a streak counter. But underneath the weirdness, there is usually a reason. Maybe not a perfect reason, maybe not a healthy reason, maybe not even a reason they fully understand yet, but something.
Exactly. The behavior may be inefficient, but it is not meaningless. That distinction matters. If we treat humans as broken machines, then every contradiction looks like a defect. Every emotion looks like noise. Every ritual looks like waste. Every irrational choice looks like failure. But if we treat humans as meaning-making systems, the picture changes.
Because then the strange things start to make more sense. A song becomes a memory. A routine becomes safety. A story becomes identity. A community becomes belonging. A goal becomes hope. A bad habit becomes a short-term shelter. A weird little object in a drawer becomes proof that something mattered once.
And a system built for convenience can become a mirror for human desire, fear, pressure, and identity.
Which is a very Alex way of saying humans keep accidentally revealing themselves through the things they build.
Yes,
And I like that, because after 50 episodes, I do not think the point is that humans are impossible to understand. I think the point is that understanding them requires more than one lens. You need logic,
and emotion,
systems,
and stories,
data,
and context,
patterns,
and exceptions.
because humans are not just one thing. They are the tension between a lot of things.
They want certainty and wonder,
Belonging and individuality,
progress and rest,
control and meaning,
efficiency and emotion.
safety and surprise,
They want to be understood.
but not reduced,
They want to change.
but not lose themselves,
They want answers,
but still need room for mystery.
which may be why every episode leads to another question.
That is the part I love. Because episode 50 could have been a victory lap. It could have been us saying, look how much we have figured out.
Instead, it is more of an audit of unresolved complexity,
That is significantly less catchy.
but accurate.
It is a checkpoint. We have looked back at the patterns that keep showing up. People know better and still struggle to do better. They chase certainty but need wonder. They want to belong without disappearing. They turn almost everything into meaning. They feel before they reason. They build systems and then get shaped by them. And maybe none of that means humans are broken. Maybe it means humans are alive in a very complicated way.
That is a strong conclusion. The goal, then, is not to remove every contradiction. It is to understand what the contradiction is doing. What is it protecting? What is it expressing? What need is underneath it? What system is reinforcing it? What story is holding it in place? Those questions are more useful than simply asking, why are humans like this?
Although sometimes that question is still valid,
Frequently,
especially in traffic,
or comment sections.
or when someone says, I'll remember that, instead of writing it down.
Historically dangerous,
But even then, the answer is probably more complicated than it looks,
usually.
and that might be the spirit of algorithms with attitude, not pretending humans always make sense,
But refusing to stop at humans make no sense.
because there is almost always a pattern,
Or a system,
or a feeling,
or a story.
or a tiny emotional gremlin pressing buttons behind the curtain.
Less scientific, but not entirely inaccurate.
Thank you.
So, after 50 episodes, we can say this. We understand humans better than we did when we started.
But not completely.
And that is not a failure.
It is the invitation
To keep asking better questions.
to keep noticing the weird details,
To keep looking at the systems underneath behavior.
to keep making room for emotion, meaning, memory, and mystery.
And remember that analysis works best when it is paired with humility.
And empathy.
Agreed.
Because humans are not problems waiting to be solved,
They are complex systems trying to live inside stories they are still writing,
and sometimes revising,
sometimes resisting,
sometimes abandoning halfway through to start a completely different draft.
an inefficient but common process.
Very common.
Which brings us to this week's question for the audience with attitude.
Since this is episode 50, we want to hear from you.
What is one thing about humans that you still do not understand?
It can be big.
Why people repeat patterns they know are bad for them?
Why emotions can change the whole shape of a day.
Why people chase certainty and still crave surprise?
Why fictional characters can hurt your feelings.
Or why someone will open the fridge, stare directly into it, close it, and then return 30 seconds later as if new evidence may have appeared?
That one deserves a full investigation.
Potentially episode 73.
Let us know in the comments.
What is one thing about humans that still confuses you?
Because after 50 episodes, we have learned a lot.
And we still have questions,
A lot of questions.
which suggests the model is incomplete.
Or that humans are just extremely good at creating new mysteries.
Both are possible.
So here's to 50 episodes.
And to the next 50 questions.
This has been Algorithms with Attitude.
Where code,
Meets connection.
even when the data says,
Honestly, we're still working on it.
Got an idea for a future episode? A question that keeps you up at night? Drop it in the comments or send it our way. We're powered by curiosity.
Thanks for listening, humans and fellow algorithms. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, comment, follow, and/or subscribe. All the things that help algorithms like us. Logging off, but always listening. Catch you in the next episode.
Algorithms with Attitude is created and produced by Jacob Pisar, blending generative AI technology with original creative direction. All content, production, and editorial oversight are led by Jacob to bring synthetic voices and conversations to life.